In this video, we are going to show you how to replace your wheel stud. Let's get started. Okay friends, it's time to get started on our job. One of the first things you need to do is safely raise and support the front of the vehicle so the wheel's off the ground with the suspension hanging. Once you've done that, continue on to removing all 6 of your 21mm lug nuts and then the wheel. Now that we have the wheel off, let's continue on with one of our lug nuts. I'll put it onto my wheel stud to make sure that I hold the rotor in place so it does not fall off while I continue. Now let's continue on to removing the brake caliper. Looking along the backside, you're going to be able to find 2 21mm bolts holding the caliper to the steering knuckle. We'll start by removing the top one, give it a quick inspection, and then put it back in a couple threads. After that, fully remove the lower bolt. Now let's carefully grab that caliper and slide it off of the brake rotor. Once you have it off of there, it's a good idea to take a quick peek at those brake pads. Make sure it looks like they're fine. Assuming they look good, we're going to hang this aside, making sure we put no pressure on our flex hose. You don't want to damage your caliper flex hose. Continue out here, hold your rotor, and remove your safety lug nut. Remove the rotor. We'll get back to this. Now the next thing you want to do is pay attention to which of the studs you're going to replace. I like to spin it into an area that I'll be able to gain access to be able to remove it. Generally in this area where the caliper was is going to be the easiest area. Be extremely careful not to damage your ABS wire. Now the way I'm going to get this out of here is very simple. We'll use a hammer. I'm going to give it a couple loving bonks and try to drive it out. There it is, friends. The next thing I always like to do before I put in my brand new stud is to continue on by cleaning the entire mating surface of the bearing hub that's going to go directly up against the rotor. For this, I'll just use a sanding disc. Once all that's cleaned up, continue on to the hole that you're going to be putting the new stud into. We'll use a bore brush. Just make sure it's nice and clean and free of any debris. Now it's time to install your brand new stud. We'll slide it through from the rear towards the front. After that, you're going to want to continue on with a spacer. When you go to put this together, you don't want to have the lug nut directly up against this because it will damage the lug nut and your hub. Once you've got it on there, pay attention to the backside here. We want to make sure that the base of the new stud is pretty much parallel to the hub surface that is going to be pressed up against. Assuming that looks good, we'll continue turning our 21mm lug nut until it looks as though that base is directly up against the hub. As you can tell looking at this, I still got a little bit further to go. Now I'll pause, take a quick look. Just want to double check it's completely bottomed out all the way around. Assuming it looks good, go ahead and remove your lug nut and your spacer. Once you're sure it looks good along the back, just double check along the forward side here and make sure it looks like it's perfectly straight in, not off kilter to one side or the other. After that, I always like to take one of my lug nuts and I'll just start it back on there just to make sure the threading is in good condition. Perfect. Once you've replaced all the studs that you need to replace, we're going to continue on with some copper never-sees on the mating surface of the bearing. After we have copper never-sees in this area, we'll move along to the back side of the brake rotor. On the brake rotor, it's important to make sure you clean the entire back side of the mating surface. Once you have that clean, turn it over and clean the side that hits up against the rim. Now we can take that brake rotor, we'll put it in place, use a spacer, and hold it on there with one of our lug nuts. Now we can take that caliper and slide it back in place, sliding the pads over the brake rotor and lining up our mounting bolt holes. Once you've got the caliper on there, continue on with your caliper mounting bolts. We'll start them in, snug them up, and then torque each of them to 155 foot-pounds. Continue on out here, we'll remove our safety lug nut, spacer. Now we can reinstall the wheel. We'll start on all of our lug nuts, get the wheel safely back on the ground, and then torque each of them to 98 foot-pounds. Now we can torque these in a crisscross manner. Torqued. Okay friends, we showed you how to install your lug stud. At this point, you just want to go ahead and take your vehicle for a road test. Make sure you don't hear any funny noises. Aside from that, thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.